Welcome to the Crazy as Usual with Donna podcast. Today I have on Crystal Gibbons, a self described country farm girl from Northern Illinois who ended up in LA. Wow, what a change. And shortly after her children were born, she started to emotionally unravel and wondered what's going on here. And so she discovered a grief recovery group. That life-changing experience revealed to her that she had found her calling in life. So she went to the Grief Recovery Institute, was trained as a grief recovery specialist 17 years ago. The institute was created over 40 years ago by two men, John W. James and Russell Friedman, who were also in search of relief from their grief and losses, a death of a child, divorce, bankruptcy. They're an international group with 7,000 specialists and materials written in 23 languages. So, pretty important group to be aware of, especially in this time, recovering from the pandemic. But there are so many other things that we have to grieve in our world today. Crystal and I actually led a grief recovery group when in Estes Park we lost our beloved police chief. And that's where I got a little peek under the hood about how this can work in a community, in a workplace, with any intact team. So, Crystal, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your story. Anything else we want to tell us a little bit more about your kiddos?
Oh, I could go on and on about them.
That could take all day. Uh-huh.
No, I am the proud mama of two amazing children, and they are both Marines. My son and daughter, right out of high school.
Amazing. Oh,
They
wow.
went full tilt in the Marine Corps. So yes, I'm just so proud of them.
Oh, that's such a noble endeavor. You know, my middle daughter called us up one day and said, "I'm thinking of joining the Marines just to pay for college." And we're like, "What?" But if anyone did, it would be that one. And we
Yeah.
said, "If you really want to, we'll support you in this. Make sure you really want to."
Yes,
She
yes,
ultimately didn't, but I have so much respect for your kids. That's a huge undertaking.
it is.
So,
And I was blindsided, had no idea because my daughter was a competitive dancer into ballet, theater. She was
wow.
Juliet in every Shakespeare play. And it made
Wow.
more sense for my son because
Yeah.
guns and violence, that's his mojo. But I'm still amazed. And again, just so proud and humbled to
Did
be
she
there.
join to pay for college or for some reason like that, or was
No, we're a little competitive in our family. She joined to show her brother she could do it. And
Oh,
she
yes.
did.
Yes, kids.
And
Yeah.
she had to go one up on him. So he went the reservist route, and she said, I'm going to go active duty. So once
Oh,
again,
wow.
more competitiveness. But
Nice.
yeah,
Well, that should be make for fun, family gatherings when they're both in the house. They
yes.
compare how many push-ups they can do, and
Yeah, I can't wrestle with them anymore. I get hurt.
yeah, I would not even try. Now, long before they were in the Marines and y'all were in California, you said that, after the birth of your kids, you kind of spiraled. There was something going on there that really dated back to, your mother. And boy, am I not qualified to talk about mother roots of trauma. So tell me a little bit about that experience and what led you to discover grief recovery.
Well, like you said, Donna, I just emotionally, I literally felt I was unraveling. I just was filled with anger, bitterness. I was so anxious. I just didn't feel emotionally present with Caden
Mm,
Lang. And I knew something was wrong. And I became very scared, like
yeah,
and desperate, like I need help. And then when a friend recommended I go check out the grief recovery program, I thought that was the strangest thing because at that time no one had died.
yeah,
So very, very skeptically, I went through the program. I thought I have nothing to lose and I wanted help. And in a short amount of time, I discovered, like you said, it was relating to my relationship with my mom. And I had
yeah.
no idea.
Wow. Wow. It's interesting. Tell me a little bit about how that gets tamped down. Those grief responses that we haven't explored because we don't even know they're really there. Why do we stuff it, and why is that dangerous?
Good question. I know for me personally, I stuffed it because I didn't know where else to put it. I grew up, I don't know about you and whoever's listening, I grew up where you don't talk about what you're feeling. You just get busy. You go outside and get to work,
Yeah.
eat your pain away. And for me, what I did with a lot of my emotions, I would run. I just physically, I had to move. So
Yeah.
you've seen the movie Forrest Gump and he's
Yep.
running down the road. Run! That was me. I was this little girl running, not riding the horse, but I had the horse running with me and the
Wow.
dogs. I was like homeward bound Forrest Gump altogether. Yes, I was always running from my pain because I didn't know what else to do with it. Because again, the I grew up where you just ate dinner and then you went to your room or you went back to work. I didn't know how to talk about my feelings. And if I were to say something, I would usually immediately get corrected with, you shouldn't feel that. If you're gonna cry, go to your room.
Mhm.
Just buck up, buck up, buttercup, pull yourself up by your
Yeah.
bootstraps, all those unhelpful, really destructive things that I heard. So I developed this belief system that I don't talk about what I'm feeling. I just fake it,
Yeah.
People ask how I'm doing. Oh, I'm fine. But inside I was just crying, hurting because I didn't know how to talk. And then I didn't have safe people I could talk to.
Right. When you're with a good friend, I can say, "You're lying. You are not fine, Crystal. Tell me the truth." And you'll tell me the truth. But, I'm trying to really make it easier to have conversations about mental health in the workplace so that we have a safe place to relate to one another, especially those of us who grew up in that snap out of it generation. It was an entire generation.
Yep.
We are parenting differently and we're learning how to cross over, but when we're doing that in the workplace, we're at even greater risk of being the weird one or the emotional one or the one who's a lot more in touch with their feelings. What's a good way to kind of slide into those conversations?
Think first of all, to preface your conversation with somebody, if you think they're going to be a safe person, and what I mean by a safe person is someone who can keep it confidential
Mhm.
and they're not going to go blab it around the office. And also where you don't think they're going to judge you, where you can really be yourself.
Yeah.
So when I have stuff that I really need to talk about, I'll like I said, I'll preface it with my friend and say, I have some things that I really need to talk about. Do you have a few minutes just to listen? I'm not looking for answers. I'm not looking for advice. There's no need to fix me. I just need an open space to get it out. Can you do
So
that for me? That's how I do it.
it's brilliant because just the very act of expressing the monkeys that are in our head, um,
Mhm.
it releases the um, power that those messages have over us. And you don't need a solution. You just need to be able to speak it. And automatically, it just the steam comes off. And
You're
isn't
right.
that large when you go through grief recovery, isn't a lot of it about just being able to express yourself?
Exactly. And because our thoughts lead to our emotions, and emotions contain so much energy.
Yeah,
And when we weren't created to be storage plants, we were created to process emotions, situations as they happen.
yeah.
And unfortunately, our society, how we were raised, we were never encouraged or taught how to do that correctly. So yeah, you're right. We just start exploding the steam because we need some type of relief. We need some type of outlet. And in the grief recovery world, we call them STIRBs, short term energy relieving behaviors,
Mhm.
things we do to get some type of relief. Because again, what do? We need an outlet. So those STIRBs could be healthy things. Like for me, like I said, I was running all the time, but probably shouldn't have run as far. It could be overeating, over drinking. It could be just isolating. That was a huge one for me. I don't have
Mhm.
anybody to talk to, so I'm just going to isolate. I'm going to be my own best friend. And that's the worst thing to do when we're hurting.
Not to mention the fact that those stored up feelings, emotions in our body can create disease.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And I saw that happen in my own life. It's not pretty. And that our bodies truly do keep score. They do. And, if people, like, I remember there's times I couldn't sleep or I woke up, just whatever had happened was right at the forefront of my mind. I just could not get peace from it.
Yeah.
And that's very, very damaging.
That's a really good point. I talk a lot about the importance of sleep and how we need to process those things that enter our mind, the monkeys that start dancing at 3 o'clock in the morning. We have to be able to quiet them to be able to go back to sleep. There's so
Yes.
many different do you have any tricks? Anything to share for you're not gonna get up and write it down at that moment because you don't wanna turn the light on. How do you quiet your mind?
Well, I do. If I have that going on, what I actually do, I get up, I get out of bed, I redirect, get a drink of water, maybe turn on some music, something to meditate on.
Mhm.
Um, I have to move because if I continue laying in bed, I probably won't fall back asleep. So I have to take some type of action.
Yeah. Yeah. Smart. You know, you mentioned earlier, when you first became aware of your own need for grief recovery, no one had died. And I think a lot of people associate grief with the loss of a loved one, but there are other reasons why we grieve. Can you touch on that list of other reasons why we need to maybe process through our feelings?
Yes, and I want to backtrack for a second, explain more about my mom because
Yeah.
going back, so the institute taught me a definition about grief I had never heard of.
Mhm.
Um, it is grief is the feeling of reaching out for someone who's never been there for you, but when you need them one more time, they're still not there.
Ah,
And that, like the monkeys in my head when my children were born, like, "Well, of course my mom's going to show up and help me. Of course grandma's going to want to meet her grandchildren. She never did.
yeah.
So I didn't know what to do with that. And that's like we talked earlier. I just stuffed everything because I had to quickly figure out how to change a diaper, nurse, and take care of the babies.
Yeah.
So that was life changing for me. And like you
Right.
said, I thought grief was just some death, divorce. Those are the main ones. But my grief, my loss was the loss of a loving, nurturing relationship with my mom.
Yeah.
I I have never felt that. What is
Mhm.
a mother's love? So I I
Uh,
tease my kids, you guys are need therapy because I've loved you too much. So I know I overcompensated and just
yeah,
I
me too. Just
never
kiss them all the time. Right.
notes, stop texting me, mom. Okay, I know you love me. It's like, no, I never want Caden Lane to feel the way I did.
Right.
Um, so yeah, and so
Uh,
there are so many different. So there was losses in my childhood. There's a lot of black holes
yeah.
in my childhood, and I didn't know moving was a loss. When we moved here from LA, and my kids were in their new bedrooms, moving here to Colorado Springs, I'm talking about. They missed their bedrooms and they were sad, and I never realized, oh, moving is a loss.
Yeah. It's
Obviously, the
another
friends and location, but moving, a change in our health is huge. As you mentioned, the pandemic. Oh my gosh,
yeah.
so much loss. A lot of people, who died. A lot of changes in our health. A lot of families that have been completely torn apart because of
Yeah.
policy differences, opinions, etc. But
Vaccination.
also,
Mhm.
yep, romantic breakups. Our kids go through so much loss in their early years, being bullied at school, not fitting in, trying to find themselves, their identity. So anyway, I could go on and on. Actually,
Ooh,
there's more than 40 other life events that are considered losses, which I had no
wow.
idea.
It's so important to just be aware, um,
Yeah.
to just have that flag ready to go. You know, when I did the research on Crazy as Usual, and when I realized that a lot of my messed up thinking about whether I'm good enough or smart enough was born in being abandoned as a kid when my mom left when I was 12. My dad died. He didn't leave, but he did leave because he had Alzheimer's and forgot my name by the time I was 14. And then he was gone when I was 16. I didn't realize that I was an orphan until I was over 30. And, to your story, I would much rather be an orphan whose parents are no longer alive than be an orphan who has living parents who are just disengaged. I think the loss is greater when you still have an opportunity to restore, and it's just not gonna happen.
Right, and they're incapable of it. My
Mm,
mom is still alive. I don't have a relationship with her. She's not involved in my life, and Kate and Lane don't know her.
wow.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
My next book is about all the mothers
Mm,
that I adopted in
yeah.
in the gap, and so I wish for you lots of, replacement grandmas
Yeah, and grandpas. Yes, yes,
and
yes.
grandpas in their life because it
Yeah,
is important.
it
So,
is.
explain a little bit about that grief recovery method. So I've definitely realized I've entered some event in my life that I need to grieve. What do I do?
Basically, it's a educational, evidence-based program. There's a beginning and an end, which I love because I'm all for therapy, don't get me wrong, but this is not therapy. Therapy, it's you never know when it's going to end. But here, give me a few weeks. I walk with you through the program. We usually meet once a week, and the materials are all provided. But it's an action step program. It's educational, and people learn the tools on how to recover from whatever is unresolved, whatever they don't feel complete with. A loss of hopes, dreams, regrets, whatever, things that maybe we're so embarrassed we've never told anybody. And it's just that hook in our heart. And we feel stuck, like we're living in an emotional prison. This
Yes.
program will help them discover exactly what it is, what's keeping them stuck, what's still hurting. And then they learn how practically to let go of them. And the beauty of this program, Donna, is it's a life changing program. Once they complete the program, they have those tools for the rest of their life. So, unfortunately, when another loss happens, they will know what to do. They'll be prepared. They won't
Yeah.
be blindsided and just like, you know, fall apart. Because grief is so heavy. It's messy, it's confusing, and it's even more difficult, debilitating when we don't have the tools or the correct information on what to do when we're grieving.
Nice. Yeah. So give me a little overview of the types of ways that people can interact with you. You teach some courses and you also do one-on-one.
Yes, I work remotely. I love doing lunch and learns for companies or just, families, small corporations. Um, I do groups in my office, and also I teach a pet loss program and another program when children are grieving. I teach the parents and caregivers how to take care of the children that are grieving.
That's so important
Mhm.
so we don't proliferate that art of not talking about it.
Yes.
So instrumental. Well, good. We're almost out of time. What are 1 to 3 things that you'd like to leave our audience with?
So don't go through your pain alone. information, correct information is available. Please, it takes courage to reach out for help. And please do that for yourself because you're worth it. And we're not created to carry this baggage, this emotional weight. There's a way
Yes.
out of that. And um, don't give up. There's hope and there's practical tools and information. You're worth it. Just take that first brave step of reaching out for help.
Mm. Well, and there's an easy way to do that. Thank you so much, Crystal, for sharing your life, a little snapshot of your life with us and the amazing services that you offer. You've been listening to the Crazy as Usual podcast with Donna and Crystal Gibbons, grief recovery specialist. You can find information on this podcast on LinkedIn under my Crazy as Usual newsletter, where we link to the podcast on YouTube. You'll also find it on Instagram once we publish it at the end of uh, January 2024. My last word to you is continue to live your life crazy, brilliant, and free.